Welcome. It's the Matic. It's the illest blurred in the land. Welcome back to Ill Blur Matic. Welcome back, ladies and community. Today I'm back with a new video, and today's new video is something that, man, this is interesting. The more I hear about it, I'm like, so what are they gonna do now? We all know that Sony hasn't been doing extremely well when it comes to Spider-Man villains and anti-heroes. They've been struggling. They've been fumbling really bad. I mean, since the very first movie, Venom, then Morbius, Madam Web, and then the final movie was Kraven the Hunter, and by far that was the worst one in the box office. Madam Web was probably another one that didn't do really well. I didn't think anything was going to top Madam Web when it came to flopping. But it seems like the Sony CEO is defending these movies to no end and standing on business to his degree about these movies. But also, another thing I want to talk about, why Stan Lee wanted to get these characters back. So let's get into today's new video. Today's new video is pretty much that Sony CEO is defending his villains and anti-hero movies. And Stan Lee, no wonder why he was trying to get the characters back. So when I think about this now, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. The CEO is attached to these movies, all right? The CEO of Sony, Tony, is attached to these movies. And maybe the problem is, because he's saying that these movies were good. He said that Madam Web, let me just say this. He said Madam Web, the critics destroyed that movie. And maybe they did, you know what I'm saying? You know, because they didn't like the movie. But can they say that about Morbius? They were all on the same page about Morbius. So you sure about that, Tony, CEO of Sony? Is that a bias? Is that a bias? And on top of that, Kraven the Hunter. I think Kraven the Hunter was the final nail in the coffin. Let me just say this. I saw the trailer for Kraven the Hunter, and this is just my honest take, me being a Marvel / Spider-Man fan. I'm like, where's Spider-Man? Now you have to remember, they talked about this a while back. They said, well, maybe the reason why our villain and anti-hero movies didn't do so well was because we did not have who? No other than Spider-Man. And they're absolutely right. I feel like they missed the mark. Venom 3 should have introduced Peter Parker Spider-Man. I don't care what nobody say. That movie should have I mean, Tom Hardy, the actor of Venom, said it would be nice to see Peter Parker Spider-Man in Venom 3. And what did Sony do? Sony ignored them. Shame on you, Sony. Shame on you. I mean, even with Morbius, they could have had Spider-Man in that. Madam Web, not necessarily. Do you need Spider-Man in that? Not when you have other characters that have spider powers. So maybe not that one. Kraven the Hunter, of course. Like, how do you have these characters with no Spider-Man included? So to me, they fumbled too much. They fumbled each time. I mean, let's be honest. The last Venom movie out of a trilogy struggled to stay afloat in the box office. And you know why? Because there's no Spider-Man there. You guys made a successful subpar trilogy, but Spider-Man was never included. You had the symbiotes, you know what I'm saying, in each of the movies. And I'm like, so we just getting symbiote fan service? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing, Tony? Over there at Sony? I'm just saying. But yeah, I think Sony missed the mark. They kept fumbling, and it just got worse. Each time they fumbled, it just got way worse for the company. He's attached to these movies. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? He's got a bias. He's attached to the movies. But people weren't really invested in these movies. Maybe that's the problem too. Maybe the fan base was like, we're not investing in this. Where's Spider-Man? And don't get me wrong, Sony is good at making Spider-Man movies. Peter Parker and also Miles Morales. That's their bread and butter. Now, let's get into the Stan Lee trying to get the characters back in Marvel. So we know that Stan Lee was determined at some point in time to want to get the characters back at Marvel Studios. Now, you have to remember, Sony owns 700 plus Spider-Man characters. And Marvel is missing a chunk of it, meaning that all these other characters could go back to Marvel Studios. And that was Stan Lee's plan. He said, you know what? Instead of sharing the Spider-Man universe with Sony, I would love to see these other characters go back to Marvel Studios. But what did Sony do? Sony negotiated with Stan Lee, and they didn't budge. They said, oh no, Stan, we keeping all these characters. You're sharing Kingpin and Peter Parker Spider-Man with us. That's all you're getting. And you know what's crazy about this? Sony talks about it again. Sony said, well, since our universe was lackluster with villains and anti-hero movies, we might consider giving all these characters back to Marvel Studios. Sounds like a good idea. Maybe they'll do more with the characters that we haven't seen. I mean, also that wouldn't limit Spider-Man, when it comes to using villains for movies or anti-heroes as that. Man, it's sad. It's sad to see that Stan fought so hard and he pretty much wasn't able to get him back. Now it makes a lot of sense because maybe he realized, like, well, it'd be nice to see all these characters back within Marvel Studios and not having to negotiate back and forth on what characters that they can use and what characters they can't use. But it is a blur living in the world, guys. You tell me in the comments, how do you feel about the CEO of Sony having a bias about these movies? And my next question is for you guys is, are you surprised that Stan Lee wanted these characters back at Marvel Studios, guys? It is a blur. Living world, guys. Thank you so much for commenting, liking, subscribing, also sharing. Hit that bell to stay notified, guys. And I'm out, legends.